The S&P 500 appeared to be at an inflection point to try to make a decision of whether to come down and fill this gap to have a little bit more of a substantial pullback, or would it come back up and push through the 5,300 level and put in a new all-time high. So we're going to take a look at the market internal, the market participant sentiment, and some of the price action of the indexes, ETF, and also the various sector in the S&P 500, along with some other sectors such as the semiconductor, the home builder, the retailer. And then we're going to see what to keep an eye on for the coming week. So stay tuned. We're finally seeing the VIX starting to come up, but it's still under the 20 level. So although it is sitting above 16 here, now we are seeing a little bit more of a hedging activity on the put-call ratio. Put-call ratio is up close to 0.9. We're looking at the up-down volume ratio, just kind of been hovering between this plus or minus 2 level. So it's nothing to be really panic about yet, because we are not seeing huge buying pressure or selling pressure. But the daily advance decline is getting a little bit soft on the daily advance, so got to keep an eye on that. Now, for the New York Stock Exchange, the number of new high versus the new low, the new high still outnumber the new low, so which is good. It is holding pretty steady right now. On Friday, there's 100 stock make new 52-week high versus 33 stocks make new 52-week low. And looking at the cumulative AD line from the New York Stock Exchange, it's not too much have changed. And if we look at the S&P 500 on a closing basis, other than a big drop from Tuesday, and also we got a drop on Thursday, but today it came back and pretty much closed near the Tuesday's close. So other than the Tuesday drop, the market or the S&P 500 really haven't done too much of a damage. And for the NASDAQ market, we seem to see a little bit more selling pressure versus the New York Stock Exchange, and also a little bit more weakness in terms of the advanced decline, the daily advanced decline. Now, for the new high versus new low, we are seeing more new 52-week low than 52-week high in the NASDAQ market. So it is showing a little bit of an internal weakness here on the new high, new low. And here, looking at the cumulative AD line for the NASDAQ market, again, not much have changed. We're still seeing this longer-term negative divergence. But as far as the closing basis on the NASDAQ 100, similarly to the S&P 500, other than the drop from Tuesday, and also we got this big drop from Thursday, it came back up and pretty much closed near the Tuesday's close. So other than the damage that was done on Tuesday, not much have changed since then, other than a little bit of a spooky day on Thursday. Looking at the indexes, we see that the composite, the NASDAQ, or the best performer, the NASDAQ composite, and the NASDAQ 100, they both only lost 0.8%. As you can see, all the indexes are negative for the week. And the worst performer is the Russell 2000 and the Dow Jones Industrial. Let's quickly go to these indexes on a weekly chart here. This is the NASDAQ composite, quite a drop for this week. You know, the candle is quite negative. And here's the NASDAQ 100, similar characteristic as the NASDAQ composite. And here's the S&P 500. And here's the New York Stock Exchange composite. Dow Jones Transportation, it's kind of flat here. It might try to break out and get above this 16,500. Here's the Dow Jones Industrial. It lost 900 points for the week, 2.27%. So you can see it's quite bearish. And likewise for the Russell 2000, the Russell 2000 lost 2.87% or 61 points. Now, if we look at the year-to-date here, the year-to-date, the S&P 500 is still holding a 9.11% gain, with the NASDAQ sitting at 8% or so. And the Dow Jones Transportation, the worst performer, is about breaking even here. It's only up 0.13%, with the Russell 2000, 1.8%, the Dow Jones Industrial, 3.22%, New York Stock Exchange Composite, 7.53%. So we are seeing some oil, the energy stock, and some of the financial to start to lift the S&P 500. And that's why we see a little bit of outperforming the NASDAQ 100 when we look at the S&P 500 and comparing to the NASDAQ. We'll take a look at a little bit more detail on some of these indexes, ETF, later on in the video. Now, let's take a quick look at the yield curve. This is the 10 versus the 2 years. You can see it's still inverted, sitting at minus 0.349. And here's the 10 versus the 3 month, and it's sitting at minus 0.96. So it came up a little bit compared to last week. Last week it was below -1. And looking at the US dollar, we saw the US dollar kind of have a wild week here, went up and came back down. But I'm still looking for the dollar to come back up to this level somewhere around this 105, 106 area. We might be coming down and retest this 103.82, but I'm still looking for a higher US dollar. And here, looking at the US dollar future, you can see that it's still kind of hovering around this composite point of control here. So as long as it hold above this level, there's a good possibility you're going to just, work yourself back up to this 106 area. Oil had another strong week. Remember, we're looking for oil to come up to this 86, 87 level here. You see this is one time framing up. And right now it's looking to about this 86.43. So wouldn't be surprised to look for a next move to come up and break above the 90 and work yourself up to this 94.22 area. Remember on silver, we've been watching silver, inside of this balance area, and we're kind of sitting around this 22 area, and we're basically watching, waiting for it to make its move up to this 26, 27 level. And as you can see this week, look at how strong this candle is, this bullish candle here, or this weekly candle, and it broke above the 26.70, and right now it's sitting at 27.5. Wouldn't be surprised to see silver come up to these level, up at the 28, 29, these pivot high area here, basically coming up and auction up into this, upper edge of this distribution. Gold also had another monster week. You see, once it broke this balance area, see how much of a surge it came up and built a little bit of acceptance here before it make another move up. And right now it appears that it is building acceptance above this 2300 level here. So wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a consolidation near this 2300 area and then possibly make another move up, because we do have another level here. And this is a major move, 80% projected major move of this balance area, this range here. And we're basically projecting it up at the 2408. And for 100% major move is close to 2500. So wouldn't be surprised to see gold come up and try to tag that 2500 level. Now let's take a look at the 11th sector in the S&P 500, starting with the XLK, the technology sector. Last week, we're watching for this trend line here to see, will the price be able to hold this trend line? And if it does, then we're basically looking for next potential move up. But as you can see, it did not hold this trend line. And we're saying that if it doesn't hold this trend line, then we're really looking for a price to come down to this high volume node here somewhere in the 206 area. So as you can see, it came down and made a test here. Then on Thursday, it dipped below it, but today on Friday, it came back above. It is holding this high volume node here so far. So we'll see what it continue to hold about this level for the coming week. And if it does, then we be looking for the possibility of it to come up and see would it break this descending trend line. And if it does, then we could look for the XLK to make another move to the high. But if it doesn't, and it continue to break below this high volume node, then we'd be looking for the possibility of XLK working its way down to this 196.5. For the healthcare sector, we're basically looking to see would it be able to break above this high and then put in a new high here. As you see, after Monday on Tuesday, it gapped down and came down below this 144.37, the support line that we're basically looking at, this support level or this balance area. We're looking for a possibility of maybe a look above and fail and come down here and then maybe chop around. And as you can see, it dipped below it and came down to this low volume area near this 141.76. And it got a nice bounce back on Friday. So right now, we're basically looking to see would it be able to come back into this balance area here, because we're still looking at this balance area. Now, if it is unable to hold this level here, then we're looking for the price to come down into this balance area. So we'll be looking at somewhere between 141.76 and 137.42. So essentially, we're looking at this balance area and this balance area for the coming week. If it come up, then we'll look at the upper distribution. If it comes down, then we look at this lower distribution, because this right here is basically like a capital B type of a profile formation. And for the consumer discretionary, remember we're looking at this trend line here to see would it be able to hold this trend line if the price dips back down. The other side was on the upward move to break this high. So as you can see, it came down and broke this trend line, and we say you can watch out for this high volume node and see would it be able to stay above this high volume node or below. If it come down and dip below this high volume node here, we are looking at the possibility of come down to this low volume zone here, this low volume node here. So right now, it appears that it is still trying to get back above this high volume node. So for the coming week, if it is unable to get above this high volume node, we're still looking for the possibility of come down and test this 176 area. And if it dip below that, basically, we're going from one distribution to another distribution. And that's how we look at it on the volume profile, the auction market theory. So if it dip below this low volume area, basically it is getting into this high volume area to try to find acceptance. So then that will, we'd be looking at price maybe come into this high volume area and find some support. So the key thing is to see would it be able to get back above this high volume node or stay below it, then look for this 176. Would it basically come down, auction down here, and then come back up? If it is unable to hold this distribution, then it will try to come down here and look for area of acceptance. And for the financial we're expected to see would it be able to push up and move up to a higher high here, or the other scenarios to come down and see would it be able to hold this trend line. So far, it is holding this trend line, and as you can see, it came down to this low volume area and got a little bit of a rejection. So basically got a little bit of a bounce. So for the coming week, we want to see would it be able to come back up to this high here. Basically looking at this balance here. Now, if it dips below the trend line, then we'd be looking at the price to move down into this high volume area here. So that's the key here, is looking at this level here near the just above 41. So if it is above the 41, then we look for price to move back up. If it's below 41, then we look for price to work itself down for the 40 level. And for the communication sector, we're looking for the possibility to take out the high here and then put in a new high. So you can see that it did come up and put in a high, although it just barely above it right now on Friday. But the key thing was that to hold this trend line. So far it is holding above this trend line, and we're basically looking to see would it continue to move up in the coming week. If it doesn't, then we look for this particular area here to get tested. Basically, once again, this low here on this candle, and that would break this trend line, then we basically possibly see a little bit of a chop and then move back up, or we could see it continue to move down and get into this balance area to see would it be able to find some acceptance. And for the industrial, it also held this trend line, and it did get a bounce off of this low volume area here. So right now it's bouncing back up to this upper portion of this distribution or this balance area. So we'll see in the coming week, would it break into a higher high, or would it come back down and retest this area here and try to break below the trend line, then work itself down into this high volume area. Look at the consumer stable. The consumer stable was unable to hold this trend line. It came down, and notice that it did not even get a little bit of a rejection at this low volume node here, and it just slide right through here. Right now it's testing this high volume node. So that tells me that this acceptance is no longer acceptable, this area here. Now it is trying to work down here to find acceptance. So keep an eye on this low volume area here. That is between just above the 73 level. Keep an eye on that, this zone here. Price could come down, and then we'll be watching to see would it get a rejection and work itself back up, or would it just kind of continue to slide down. Then we'd be looking at the possibility of trying to work down toward the 71 level. And looking at energy, it really took off. It surpassed the level here that we're looking for at 95, 96. So right now it appears that it's trying to come up to this 98.87, and I will not be surprised that it's going to hit this century mark and come up to this 100.97. This is another pivot high going way back. Might get a little pullback back to the 96 level, and then maybe get a little bit of a back test, and then push it above this 99 to 100 area. So I keep an eye on energy. I think right now energy is quite strong. And for the real estate, we're looking to see would it be able to come up to this upper edge of this balance area, or would it break this trend line? As you can see, it broke the trend line, and right now it seems to be working down toward this lower edge at the 37.63. So we'll continue to monitor this real estate sector to see would it come down to this 37.63 and would it be able to hold this level and then work itself back up. Otherwise, if it breaks, then we're basically looking for this area down here at this 36 level. And looking at the material, we're still looking at material to try to move up to a higher high here. But if it does pull back, then we're basically looking at this level here, this high volume node here now at this 90.80 to see would it get a bounce back up for the high. Now, if it breaks this high volume node, then again, we're basically looking at this gap here, right down here, somewhere around the 89 level. Utility for the week is still holding up above this level here near the 65 area. So it is still at this upper little bit of a distribution. So as long as it holds above this 95, then we can see utility constantly trying to work its way up to this 66.25. Now, if it breaks this distribution and break this level here at the 65, then we could see utility working back down into this high volume area. And this has been a huge balance area for quite a while. So got to keep an eye on that. If we come back into this high volume area, then we can see utility going to be work itself back down to this 60 and 58 area. So those are the 11 sectors from the S&P 500. Now let's go and take a look at the other sector. The semiconductor sector also had a wild week. You can see that it tried to break out of this balance area here. Remember, we were talking about this balance area last week. To keep an eye on this and see would it be able to break out or come down and break this trend line. And it basically looking at this balance area to see would it be able to hold it. So right now it is just trying to hold this area here. It broke this trend line. So for the coming week, we want to see would it be able to move back up and break this balance area and take out this high. Remember, this high was due to the Micron post-earning report. And if it could, then we could see the semiconductor try to work itself back up to the high here. Now, if it is unable to hold this balance area and breaks down, then we're basically looking for this thing to work itself down and fill this gap and get down into this little bit of a high volume zone and see would it be able to find acceptance. So that's the key for the coming week, this 212, 206 area. And the other thing is basically this 218 area, I believe that is somewhere around 218. So if it could hold above the 218, then there's a good chance that it could work itself back up to the 230. But if break 218, then look for a 212 and 206. Now, the home builder did not have a good week last week. It broke down this trend line here. We're basically looking for the possibility of holding at this 109 area here to see would it be able to get a bounce off of this low volume node here. And you can see it is trying to come back up on Friday. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a continuation of this price move down to this 105 area to this high volume node and then see would it get a bounce off of that. And if it doesn't, then we're basically looking for this thing to come down for this 100 area. And for the retailer, we saw the retailer basically did a we call it the look above and fail. Right? We're looking at the possibility of break this balance area and see would it continue to move higher. As you can see, it did not. It came back into this balance area and we traced all the way back down to the lower edge of this balance area. So we essentially saw a look above and fail type of a price move. So right now we want to see would it be able to work itself back up into, up to this area here near the 78. If it is unable to do so and break this balance area and dip below this low volume node, essentially dip below the 74 area, then look for this area here to possibly, try to find some acceptance or balance here. So basically, we're looking somewhere around this 72.5 or so down to this 71.5. So we basically are looking at this particular balance area here. If the price is unable to get back above this level here into this balance area for the retailer. And for the biotech, we're basically looking to see will the biotech be able to break this trend line and work itself up to this high here, up at this 141. But as you can see, it did not. Instead, it came down, and we're saying if it come down, we want to see would it be able to hold this high volume node. And once again, it was unable to hold this high volume node, and it broke down from this trend line here. And we're looking for this level at 133.50. So right now, it is below this 133.50. So we're basically looking at the possibility of continue to move down And if it's unable to hold this area here near this 131, because we are still looking at this balance area here, okay, for the biotech. If it failed to stay inside of this balance area, then we are looking for to try to find acceptance down here and maybe possibly at this 128, 126 area. So that's the area that we'll keep an eye on if it breaks this 131. And looking at the TLT, the long-term bond here, we basically was looking for the possibility of, staying inside of this balance area. And one of the upside scenario was to come back up to this 97 area. So you can see that it came down to the lower edge and it booked to it and tried to get back above it on Thursday, but on Friday, unable to hold above that inside of this balance area. So right now, we're basically looking for the TLT to see would it get back inside of this balance area in the coming week, or would it continue to work itself down? Here's a low volume node here that we might see a little bit of a rejection, and that would be somewhere around the 91 area. And if it doesn't get rejected back up, then we're basically looking at the possibility for this thing to come down for this area here, where there's another low volume node, and basically is right near this gap here down at the 86 and change. So those are the sectors, and as you can see, we are getting a lot of mixed price action, and look like a lot of the sectors start pulling back a bit. So we probably see a little bit more pullback in the coming week before it starts to show some stabilization and start building another base for the next upward move. So we'll see. I mean, anything is possible. Now let's go and take a look at the ETF for the indexes. Let's take a look at the ETF for the indexes, starting with the diamond, the Dow Jones Industrial ETF. As you can see, it broke this trend line here and it closed way below the lower range of the expected move here. So essentially right now, it is inside of this balance area. And for the coming week, we are expecting the upper range to be between 395.80 and 394.50. And the lower range is between 383.30 and 381.50. So you can see that the range is basically being placed right near the edge of this distribution of this balance area here. So if the price come down to this lower edge of this distribution, let me box this in here. So we're basically looking at this balance area here. So if it come down, then basically this lower range will get tagged. But if it come back up and try to reclaim this trend line here, then get up to this edge here, that basically come up and try to tag the lower edge of the upper range for the week. So those are the key level to watch is somewhere around this 392.79 and 382.12. Essentially, these ranges here for the weekly upper and lower range. And looking at the SPY closed right above the lower range on Friday here, basically for the OPEX. But on Thursday, it was below this lower range here. And it is below this trend line right now. And it is hovering inside of these, distribution, this multiple distribution, this one large balance area, if you want to take a look at it in this way, with a triple distribution in there. For the coming week, the upper range, we are looking at 527.70 and 526.60, and the lower range between 510.30 and 507. So we are looking at this huge distribution here, and the price is smacking right in the middle of it. And if we separate these, you can look at these as a triple distribution here, and it is sitting right in the middle of the low volume node here that separate these two distribution. So for the coming week, we'll be watching to see would the price come back up to this upper end of this distribution here, or would it come down and try to hold this distribution, or come down and work its way down into this distribution and tag the lower range. Now, if it could reclaim this trend line and come up and push us to a new high, then we're basically looking at the upper range to get tagged. So those are the level to watch. Is the 524.11, 517.38, and the 511.91, and then the 504.91. So those are some of the levels to keep an eye on. When price get to those area, watch for potential reaction. Looking at the QQQ, the ETF for the Nasdaq 100, as you can see, it did hold above this high volume zone here, this high volume node, and it closed above the lower range of the expected move. But it did break this trend line, although it broke the trend line. But if we look at this as one distribution here, this balance area here, so it's basically still holding inside of this balance area. And for the coming week, the market is pricing in the upper range somewhere between 450.30 and 449.10, and the lower range is between 431.80 and 429. So you can see that if we join this balance area here, and the range is pretty much within this balance area. If the price break this high volume zone and work itself down to the lower range of this balance area, then we can see the lower range to get tagged. But if price work itself back up and try to get into the new high, the all-time high, then the upper range will get tagged. So the key thing to watch are these level up here at 447 and the 431. Now, if we break the 431, then we'd be looking at price to work itself down into this balance area and possibly get into this 415 and try to fill this gap. But if price could get back above this balance area, then yeah, we'd be looking at the possibility of maybe the all-time high will get put in play. And finally, looking at the IWM, the ETF for the Russell 2000, you can see that it closed below the low range and also just barely holding on to this trend line here. It is inside of this distribution and it is holding above this low volume dent here. So we're going to see will it be able to continue to hold this area for the coming week. And here's what the market is pricing in for the upper range is between 210.80 and 209.40. And the lower range is between 199.50 and 198.30. Now, if we take a look at this, volume profile distribution here, if we block off this balance area, okay, and then you can see that there is a double distribution. It's like a B, okay, a capital B. So that's a double distribution, and the market is pricing in the lower range right around this, separation between these two distributions. So we'll be watching the price. If it come down, would it be able to get a bounce back up and work itself back up to the upper range and essentially come back up to the top of this upper distribution? Or would it continue to break through and move to the lower range and work itself down to the lower distribution? And that would place it down here to the somewhere around this 190.60 level. So the key thing to watch is these double distribution area and this level here, 199.66. If it dipped below this level, then look for price to work itself down toward this 190. And if it is able to hold above this level, then look for the price to work itself back up toward this 206 and 208 area. Okay, so those are the ETF for the indexes. Now, on my Substack page, I post this market profile chart for the ES on Friday and highlighting these single print that we're going to get filled here. And as you can see on Friday, we did come up and fill partially some of these single print, but it came down and filled these single print. Now, there are some more single prints up here that need to be filled and also the completion of here. Now, the other things that I want to bring to your attention is the poor high from these date here back in March. So these poor high need to get resolved. And these are basically the all-time high that put in during the regular trading hour session. There's an all-time high from the Globex session that we need to get resolved, and that will bring the S&P 500 cash index to a new all-time high when that's occurred. So here's the latest market profile chart. You see that we got a poor high here on Friday. Right? These are the poor high that need to get resolved here, and also the single print. So for the coming week, if the price decide to move back up, then we'll be watching for the single print to get filled and possibly come up and take out these high here. And if that is the case, there's a good possibility that we could see all-time high. Now, if it is coming back down, unable to come back up to fill these single print, then look for the price to come down and check this poor low here. Right, there's this poor low. And then come down and tag these naked point of control. So those are the potential downside level that we want to keep an eye on in the coming week. So from the sentiment chart and also the internals, we are seeing a little bit more fear now, although it is not to the point that the market participant are risk off and panicking. But we are start seeing a little bit of softness in the daily advanced decline. So we could see a little bit more pullback before it make another leg up. If you'd like to see additional contents from me, be sure to go check out my Substack page at smtraderca.substack.com You can see the daily trade plan that I publish, and also some of the chronicle of my trade that kind of give you some idea how I trade and what sort of setup that I use to trade around some of the level that I publish on my daily trade plan. I hope you found this video to be informative and useful, and be sure to smash the thumbs up to give it a like. And also, if you're new to this channel, click the subscribe, and that will greatly help to support this channel.